Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Girl Be Free podcast. I'm your host, Siobhan, where I'm going to inspire and motivate you to show up for yourself. So, this week, I am loving a text that I received from a friend yesterday morning. And I was laying in the bed looking at my phone, and I was like, it came through right in a moment that I needed it. And I'm going to read it to you. It says, "Hey, friend, I was at the gym this morning and a lady walked by me with a Girl Be Free shirt on, and it made me smile. So big because of the impact you are making. Your fruit is so sweet. Keep planting seeds." And y'all, that just made me tear up because y'all know how I feel about my work and I'm really passionate about it. And sometimes I have moments where I am feeling discouraged and like nothing is going right in all the things. And that moment came, excuse me, that text came at a moment when I really needed it. And it reminded me to not focus on what I cannot control, focus on what I can control, and keep showing up every day and planting the seeds. And at some point, the seeds that I am sowing, I will reap a harvest. And I honestly believe that. So that's what I want to share with you. Next up, I'm going to share a listener review, and this comes from Miss Feeling Fancy. And the title of her review on Apple Podcast says, "OMG, I simply love this broadcast, and I am so glad you mentioned sharing this podcast with your friends because I started sharing this with all of my friends, and that's in all caps. Those who have iPhones, of course. Last month, thank you so much for giving me life with your podcast. I honestly wait impatiently for the next podcast each week. So thank you so much for sharing that. And please know that you can listen to the podcast on Stitcher, Google Play, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Seriously, wherever you tune into podcasts, you can listen. And yes, I encourage you to share this episode or this podcast in general with your friends, especially if you are getting something from it and it's changing your life and challenging you to show up for yourself. I highly recommend that you share it with friends. So, the theme or the topic for this week is why self care is trendy. And I want to talk about this because I was having a meetup, one of my BeFree meetups last year, and I asked the attendees, "How do you practice self care?" And so these are some of the responses that I received. "I get my mani pedi every 2 weeks. I like to take baths with scented bath bombs, or I treat myself to massages and facials every now and then." Now, listen, those are all great, and I highly recommend doing those things, but that is more self care when it comes to like your outer appearance or your personal hygiene. And yes, those things are very important. However, when I hop on here on this podcast, or when you see me in person, or I'm talking about an event or teaching a workshop, when I'm talking about self care, I care more about your mental and your emotional well being. Okay. I care more about how are you taking care of your inner self? How are you doing the inner work? How are you healing? And when we're looking on social media and self care comes up, it's typically the trendy stuff like, taking baths and getting facials. But I would love for you to be intentional about how are you caring for your mind, body, and soul. I used to be the person faithfully who would get my hair and nails done, especially when I wore my hair straight and it was longer. Like every 2 weeks, religiously, I was getting my hair done, I was getting my nails done, always wanted cute outfits and all that jazz. And I was looking good on the outside, but internally I was broken because self care didn't go beyond the trendy stuff of what I heard self care was, right? And so I had to start caring for myself on a deeper level so that I could give my heart and soul what it really needed. And so I've shared plenty of times on this podcast is that my self care started with therapy because of the emotional healing that needed to take place in order for me to really care for myself. And so everyone's self care ritual will look different. And listen, that is perfectly okay. We're all living our own lives. So, of course, what each of us need as an individual is going to look different. I will say currently what my self care looks like is meditating for about 10 minutes in the morning. I'm using this app that I really enjoy that my friend Dawn told me about called Bliss More. And there's a book that I'll link in the show notes. And then there's also an app. And I really like it because one of the things that I wanted to focus on more this year was doing unguided meditation. And so you can set the time frame to whatever you like. And so I've been setting it to 10 minutes, and my meditation has been unguided. Now, I'm not perfect by any means, which I don't know if there is a perfect way to meditate, but it has been helping me a lot. So that's one part of my self care ritual. Another thing is, I've been expressing my vulnerability and having open and honest conversations, not just with myself, but with other people. And it's been such a liberating experience as I work on letting go of the shame and guilt that I've carried for a long time. So even if you're following me on social media, you may notice a difference in how or what I write about on my post. If you're reading my newsletters that I send out every week, you may notice that they're a little bit more transparent and vulnerable because I really want to resonate and connect with my audience. And I know the more that I free myself, I'm also positioning myself to free other people as well. And so if you're not subscribed to my newsletter, you can do that at befreeproject.com/newsletter. And I'll link to that in the show notes so that way you can take it out, or excuse me, that way you can check it out. And I will say, with me, you know, sharing a little bit more and letting go of the things that have kept me stuck, I'm starting to feel so much lighter and so much freer. And the more I share, the more I'm like, oh, well, maybe you should share a little bit about this or a little bit about that. And as I do this, you guys are reaching out to me, whether you're sending me a DM, you're emailing me, you're seeing me out and about, you're telling me that what I'm sharing is helpful. And I'm glad, because this is self care to me, that I don't carry things that cause me pain or just be so judgmental against myself that it keeps me trapped in my mind. Like, I need to free myself, and that is self care for me. So, I'm going to give you a few things that self care can look like for you. Again, these are very general things, I will say. This is not the end all be all list, but these are a few things that you can think about when it comes to self care. So, self care can look like you saying no without explaining yourself. So often we feel like we have to give everyone an explanation as to why we're doing X, Y, and Z, and you don't. Like, your self care is your self care, right? And so if there's something that you don't want to do, guess what? You don't have to do it. And that is you putting your needs first instead of making someone else a priority over yourself. So you can say no without having to give a long explanation as to why you're saying no. It does come with practice, but trust me, it can be done. Self care can also look like you setting boundaries and standing your ground. This is something that I've experienced most recently with not just myself, but then also in relationships, and not allowing things that don't sit right with me, allowing them to fester, if that makes sense. And so I think it's important, like, if you believe in something and it means something to you, that you stand your ground and you don't be shifted just based on what someone else feel you should do. Next, going to therapy to heal from past hurts. Listen, I love, love, love how I'm seeing so many more women and men, actually. I've been following a few accounts where men are openly talking about therapy as well. I don't see a lot, but I am starting to see a few. So I think that that's a great thing. But therapy is, I talk about it all the time, and it goes, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, then you already know. But I want you to heal. I want you to be free. I want you to live a life that feels good to you. And in order to do that, some of the things that have caused us pain and hurt in our lives, we need to heal from. I told you a few weeks ago that one of the things that I am working on is healing the inner child in me. And it is a process. She's triggered more often now that I'm self aware about it than before. But that healing is so beautiful because I'm able to grow within my own self because I'm doing this inner work. Another way that you can practice self care, and this is something specifically for me, but maybe you can take something from it as well, is practicing self compassion and kindness. So I will say, this is my transparent moment. I am guilty of being a little bit too hard on myself at times. And I have to be reminded to be more compassionate and kind to myself and give myself credit for all of the progress that I've made, not just in my business, but in my personal life as well. So that is what self care looks like, me being more compassionate and kind towards myself and just giving myself grace. And I'm saying this out loud on the podcast because I go back and listen to my own episodes sometimes, and I need to be reminded to give myself grace and all the beautiful progress that I'm making. Next, self care can look like you exploring what makes you happy and then doing more of that. So I have to commend myself. One of the things I said last year, like, I need to have more fun. I need to do more things that bring me joy. And lately, I've been doing that. Every month, I've been trying to do something to just for me that doesn't include anyone else. And so this month, I wanted to see the making of the Five Heartbeats, and it's the documentary that's on tour that Robert Townsend is on tour with. And y'all, first of all, the Five Heartbeats is my favorite movie of all times. Me and my best friend, when we were in high school, every day after school, we would go to her house and watch the Five Heartbeats. I know all the words, and so when I learned that the documentary was going on tour, so he could tell the story behind making the movie, which was so inspiring, and if it comes to your city, you should totally go see it. So I was like, I have to go. And so I told my best friend, I'm like, we got to go. It's going to be so nostalgic, all that jazz. And we went and had such an amazing time. Um, I feel like there was something else that I did most recently. Oh, I went to see the Alvin Ailey dancers, and that was so beautiful as well. So I've been doing more things that make me happy and that bring me joy. Just for the sake that I want to do it. And if other people want to be included, great. If not, that's fine as well. So I'm trying to keep up that momentum in doing that. Another self care practice is sitting in solitude and enjoying the stillness of life. So I believe that you can learn a lot about yourself when you're by yourself. And I know sometimes people don't like to do that because of they're afraid to be by themselves or they need people around them. But listen, start enjoying yourself, whether that's just sitting in your room quiet, listening to the birds chirp, which I can hear right now. Um, whatever that thing is, whatever that looks like for you, but enjoy being with yourself and enjoying the stillness of life. Recently, I've been going for more walks, which has felt really, really good. But enjoy being with yourself. That's self care. And then one more idea that I want to share with you is writing down what you're grateful for. So I have a ritual that every day I write down a few things that I'm grateful for. And I try not to repeat what I've said the previous day, and so it can be something as simple. Even this morning, I said, you know what? I am grateful that I'm able to pay all of my bills. I'm happy that I'm able to do work that I love to do that is making an impact in the world. Like, I am grateful for that. So I share that all the time with you guys. Like, make sure that you are practicing gratitude in whatever way feels good to you. And so, lastly, self care can look like you getting away for a weekend and attending the Girl Be Free retreat. Yes, yes, yes. The Girl Be Free retreat that's happening in October of this year is a great way to connect with real women having real conversations, dealing with real life challenges. And it's going to be a beautiful experience with women connecting, growing, learning more about ourselves and what it really means to be free and live our best life. We're going to do a lot of the inner work. We're going to learn about walking in our feminine power. We're going to have fun. I'm just over the moon excited about this experience. So you can go to girlbefreeretreat.com to learn more. And I would love to know, are you ready to practice self care? So tell me either something that I shared today or something else that you have on your list. How are you going to practice self care? So there's a link for this particular episode in the show notes, and I want you to leave a comment on this particular episode and let me know how are you going to practice real self-care. So that means self-care for your mind, body, and soul. What will you start to do as it relates to doing the inner work? All right. Next up, I want to highlight dope women doing dope things. And this week, I am highlighting my friend Aycee Brown. She just recently started her she just recently launched her podcast, which is all about human design and how to help you start living from your core instead of your conditioning. She's discussing topics such as human design, astrology, metaphysics, spiritual self development, and everything in between. So you can find her podcast on Apple Podcasts. Again, it's called Is My Aura on Straight? And you can also follow her on Instagram at Aycee Brown. And if you do, which I hope you do, let her know that I sent you. So, as always, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being a huge supporter of Girl Be Free. Every week, I hop on IG Live to do what I call the Be Free chat. Make sure you're following me on Instagram at Be Free Project. A few of you reached out and asked about I used to have a page called the Girl Be Free Podcast. I have since closed that page. So everything about Girl Be Free and Be Free Project will be on one page. And again, my handle is Be Free Project. It just simplifies my life so much. Again, if you are enjoying this podcast, make sure you leave a review on Apple Podcasts. You can always shoot me a DM as well on IG, letting me know your key takeaways. And don't forget to leave a comment on today's episode on my website, and that link is in the show notes. Lastly, share this podcast with friends. The more, the merrier, right? Until next time, girl, be free.